that star tackle for you, because we know how expensive, tackles are in the NFL. If you're star left tackle, star right tackle, you're one of the highest paid players on the team. And that's because you have one of the biggest responsibilities on the team. And Jackson has showed, whether that be in camp settings or on film, how good of a player he is. And like I mentioned, the physical tools, those are things you can't teach, and he has all of that. Plus having the Olympic parents, in your bloodline, I feel like that's the cherry on top of that too. But he's an absolutely awesome prospect. Consensus number one overall tackle. Consensus one of the I think he's only not the number one player on one site, but he's all that he is and more for sure.
Yeah, I mean, he's a very talented player. Again, I've seen the film on him. He's a masher. He's a guy who can protect your quarterback. He's a guy that doesn't fall for tricky defensive plays as well. He can pick up stunts, etc. And even guys that are coming in, last minute blitzes. So we've heard a lot about.
Spent, I think, 4 or 5 days, in Miami and Coral Gables during the spring practice, and then came back and spent another 2 days, after the spring game. So Miami's really, really in the mix with him right now, and I think they're, if not the top school, probably 1A or 1B in his recruitment. Obviously, I feel like the official visits are going to play a huge role into his final decision. Right now, I would say I'm leaning towards Miami. I say they'd be the favorite in his recruitment because one thing that he did mention that is pretty interesting that you don't hear a lot of recruits say is obviously he has a great relationship with Coach Kevin Beard, but he has an awesome relationship with Coach Shannon Dawson, Coach Shannon Dawson. One of his favorite offensive coordinators, and mentioned how dynamic the wide receivers in the Canes offense are. Obviously, we saw last year with guys like Xavier Sharpo, Jacoby George, Isaiah Horton, but Samarin himself told me, he's like, listen, I saw what he did with a guy like Tank Dell in Houston that is playing for the Texans right now. That's a lot of kids nowadays love Tank Dell and always call him one of their favorite receivers. And he took it back even further. He mentioned Tavon Austin, Stephen Bailey, what he did at Ace-Back, just a really dynamic player like Miami got in Elijah Lofton. And those guys are super, super high on him. He's a guy that I'm high on. I saw him camp at Miami last summer. It's just weird seeing a guy that big move that smooth, and it's just like, isn't this guy supposed to be working with the big boys? What is he doing? Catching passes, from the quarterback right now. But a very, very dynamic and unique player, and just guy that we see Miami just wants massive body types and guys that can move and move people. And Hezzy Kent kind of fits that description really well. Kind of reminds me of a Darnell Washington type of guy. Obviously, Darnell was a little bit on the slimmer side, but I think Hezzy Kent, Miami's plan is if he gets into the program, slim him down a little bit, but kind of still use that power at an advantage and make that finesse a little bit more smooth and all that stuff. But he's a really, really unique prospect that I think Miami really likes in that 2026 class.
Yeah, funny thing about Hezzy Kent, if you want to be entertained watching film, watch him. He's like